Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast. We've got a full complement today. Everyone's here, and we're all talking football. Talking games from last week, games from this week, football news, and anything else that we could find that's football related. If you're watching us on YouTube or listening along on iTunes, SoundCloud, or in fact, wherever you get your podcasts, it's all good. But if you could subscribe, like, share, comment, gift it to friends and family for Christmas, that would be amazing. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Recording in progress.
Oh my word, I'm not even ready. I'm kidding. I'm never ready. Okay, so, what are we doing? It's a football podcast. One day in the near future, probably in the new season, this podcast will definitely get a name. But for time being, at this moment, it is the football podcast. Does exactly what it said on the tin. We talk about sewing and knitting mostly. I'll hand you over to the host who has more than the most, Paul Williams, and he's going to tell us where exactly we're going.
Yeah, well, as Andy's alluded to there, welcome along, ladies and gents, boys and girls. We're going to give you your weekly fix of mainly championship-based nonsense, but we'll go into the wider footballing arm as when we get on to the this week in football later on. Something rather interesting, I suppose, happened last night, but we'll get to that. Before we get into this week in football, we'll do last week in football in as much as we'll go through last week's results.
Now then, last week's results, there was only 3 games to predict. Now I believe this is becoming a bit of a theme because I'm reliably informed by the host of the Getting Over podcast that there are only 3 games to predict this week. I've put those games in the book and we'll come to those shortly. But as Paul pointed out, we're talking last week's football. We start with an absolute beauty. The WBA, the Women's Basketball Association, went up against Matt's favourite team, the Nottingham Forest. And, I mean, can they fit more goals in 90 minutes? Because this one was an absolute, I tell you. Matt, how many goals were scored in this game? I mean, come on, it's ridiculous.
There was no goals scored in this game at all. But it was quite an entertaining match. Of course, with it being on the old Sky, I watched it. And it was quite an enjoyable match. It was quite back and forth. Both teams got a chance to kind of dominate parts of the match. Unfortunately for Forest, West Brom got their players sent off late on in the second half, so they couldn't really capitalise on it. But quite an evenly matched game for two clubs. Kind of one Forest kind of aiming to make a move up the table, and West Brom kind of trying to cling on to where they are at the moment, but seem to be struggling a bit. But decent game, no goals.
No goals. Now, in a prediction situation where we like to predict goals and goal scorers, when you've got neither, one of them goes hand in hand with the other, what you end up with is no points. However, there is a loophole because, let's say, for example, somebody didn't put 0-0, but somebody put 1-1. technically, that is still a draw. And technically, that would get you points. Wouldn't it, Paul?
Certainly would, Andrew.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. So, seeing as he's in the room, we've given him a point for his 1-1 draw. But that's that. That's it. That's all the points. However, that little smirk, that little cheeky grin for getting the only points in that game can only get bigger. How could it get bigger? How? Well, Huddersfield took on the mighty Borough. So, how did this game unfold?
Well, Andrew.
Well,
this would be the old chestnut of Huddersfield Town 1, Middlesbrough 2.
lovely stuff. Who scored the goals? Of the three goals,
there was a brace for Duncan Watmore, and technically, all 3 goals were scored by Middlesbrough players. As right at the end of the game, as in literally, I think they scored, and then Middlesbrough took the kick off, and the game ended because it was in the 94th minute, I think. There was a rather comical own goal from the goalkeeper Luke Daniels.
Middlesbrough putting all the balls in all of the nets. So, with a 1 and a 2, and a Watmore and a Daniels, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what does that do points-wise? Well, as if taking the only point out of the first game wasn't enough, he's back, ladies and gents, because he's only gone and correctly predicted the score. 2 points. However, no correct goal scorers. Stu, you had...
Just quickly, I can't remember who I put down for the Huddersfield goal, but I do remember saying something along the lines of, it'll be absolutely typical if Sol Bamba scores an own goal or something like that.
There was mention of an own goal, yes. No.
Just not having any more.
No.
I was going to say
just because I said they'd probably score an own goal, and they didn't almost do. They actually did.
There's no points there though. Stu got some points because he put the Borough down to win, but it is just the 1 because unfortunately you didn't get the goal scorer. So you know, 1's better than nothing.
Well, he's hindered himself by the fact that he's self-imposed that he can't pick Watmore anymore because he thinks he's a wind-up merchant. So.
Well, I'm running out. You see, this is what happens when you go and watch live football, because I'm not going to pick Tavernier anymore because, you know, cow's ass and banjo territory. And, just why would I want to waste my time bothering with a little nasty, horrible man like him?
Definitely thought you were going to come in there, going to question his hair colour there for a second.
Now, you see, this is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. We've given Paul enough stick that he's taking the piss out of himself these days. So.
Unfortunately for Matt, a draw's not going to get you any points, and neither of the goal scorers you predicted did anything. As was my week of putting all the home teams down to win, I also got a point, because I got a point for Middlesbrough winning. I did not get the goal scorer. So that's that. And that just leaves us with Hull versus Millwall. Stu?
Yep. Well, for the 4th game in a row, Hull won. It's Hull City 2, Millwall 1, with George Honeyman and Longman scoring for Hull, and, as if I didn't pick this guy as well, Bradshaw for Millwall.
You know, each week I like to do the thing where I go, hey, put your hand up if you're getting points out of this game. Stuart, at some point in time, you're going to have to start backing your own team because of your...
No, it's working. I don't have to. They're going to lose every week.
Because of your 1-1 prediction and not getting any of the 3 goal scorers, it's no points, sir. However, points for Paul, putting Hull down to win. Just a little point for this guy. But 2 games on the bounce brings 2 correct predictions. Matthew, take a bow with your 2-1 prediction and just season it by the fact that you also went for the Honeyman to score a goal.
Honeymans.
And that's the thing, ladies and gents, because things can change like that. Because up till that game, Matt had no points. After that game, Matt finished the week 2nd. Changes like that. Stu, unfortunately, you are last this week with just the 1 point. I am 3rd this week, 2 points. Matt, 3 points. You are 2nd, sir. Look at him. He's going in for it, ladies and gents. That is right. Paul Williams takes the week with 4 points. Obviously, that means that our scores went 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So there you go. That is last week done and dusted. Now then, where do you want to take us from here, Paul?
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll do a little change in the old format, inshallah. We'll discuss the sort of the week in football. And I don't know if anyone else was going to bring this up, but so we covered the England game the other week when they beat San Marino by 10 goals, and we discussed the fact that, you know, probably a little bit of a joke that they have to play them at all, as obviously they're not really at the level where it's even competitive. Well, let's take a little journey over to the female form of the game, shall we? So last night, I think it was a World Cup qualifier, was it?
Correct.
So it was a World Cup qualifier for England versus Latvia. And the game finished 20-0.
So I think the connection broke up a little bit there. 2-0, did you say?
Yeah, there was definitely a 2-0 in there somewhere, but it wasn't 2-0. It was 20.
I presume they had their keeper sent off in the first 30 seconds.
But there was actually something that came up during the course of my scrolling through Twitter, where at some point someone put I shouldn't laugh. Someone had put a clip on of the Latvian goalkeeper taking a goal kick, and I don't know whether she kicked the floor first, but it barely made it out of the air.
Oh God!
Oh dear.
We should probably mention as well that the Latvians decided that a change of goalkeeper was necessary for some bizarre reason, probably the reason Paul just mentioned, and the replacement goalkeeper lasted 3 minutes before they conceded.
Bear in mind, this was in the 93rd minute or something. So the person taking the goal kick is the replacement goalkeeper.
Oh God!
I had this conversation with a guy at work today. Obviously, the standard between the top teams in the men's game and the lower ranked teams in the men's game is it's a bit of a chasm. But in the women's game, it's almost like they're playing a different sport. It's just not even funny. I'm pretty sure I think I've seen at least 4 of the qualifiers that they've played so far in this round of fixtures where they've won by double figures in 3, if not 4 of the games, and they haven't conceded. So I'd say England's women's team's probably in the top 5 maybe of the world for like women's football. They're a very, very good side, to be fair, but the sort of the minnows of the international women's game are so bad. It's just not even worth sort of like discussing, really. I mean, like I say,
Did you hear the post-match press conference with the manager for the England side? Her name is escaping me right now, but basically they said to her, "Do you think that you maybe should have laid off a little bit?" And she went, "Our job's to go and score goals. If we had the chance to score 25 goals, we'd have scored 25 goals." So she did then concede that maybe that there was a bit of a, like you said, a gulf in class, but she was not keen on laying it easy at any point at all.
Why should she be? Like it's that thing where basically, not that it's gonna, but if it ended up boiling down to qualify, it could go down to goal difference. Not that it's ever gonna, because they're obviously going to win every game in the qualified section. But if it did go down to goal difference, then why wouldn't you just go and absolutely like ping them in the top corner every 5 minutes and stuff like that?
Would you imagine it though? They're heading for like, depending on, I don't know who's in the rest of England's group, but you're looking at like having a positive goal difference of like 70. If they're scoring double figures in most games, you're heading towards something ridiculous, and it kind of makes it, like, it's certainly like rugby league and possibly the Cricket World Cup. Don't the smaller nations have to qualify, and the others kind of have an automatic kind of entry into the World Cup? So you kind of think that to give the lower level teams some kind of like opportunity to build stature, they need to perhaps play each other before they start. Because a 20-0 whooping is just.
It's not going to encourage the girls in Latvia to go and take it up, is it?
No,
if you just
it doesn't help anybody, does it?
Just to put it into perspective, though, some of the other results from the Women's World Cup qualifiers. I mean, yesterday, Germany won away in Portugal 3-1. Standard scoreline, really. Sweden won at home against Slovakia 3-0. Kind of a standard scoreline. Then we get to Austria away at Luxembourg. Yep, that was just the 8-0 win for Luxembourg. Then there was the England-Latvia result. The Republic of Ireland, powerhouse of world football, playing Georgia, who also had somebody sent off. So yeah, just the 11-0 win for the Republic of Ireland. Spain beat Scotland 8-0. Earlier on the day of recording, Norway played Armenia and won 10-0, so another double figure. So there's been some absolutely ridiculous scores in that qualifying.
It's the difference between professional leagues and amateur leagues, and it's just obviously the Women's Super League. Obviously, there's 2 different competitions, isn't there, over here? And they're producing players, and they're producing like a high standard and kind of the structure to go and play regularly, and that's your job. Whereas these other countries, they're just not. I don't know. It sounds disrespectful, and what's the point, kind of thing. But the 20-0, it's just.
We should probably not gloss over though the fact that there was 3 hat tricks amongst that, which there's got to be 4 hat tricks. Amongst that. I was getting confused by the number 3 in its entirety.
They actually put something on Twitter about the fact that it was just the 4 match balls being taken away from tonight's game. One of the women did score 4, actually, to be fair.
But then, one of the women who scored, Ellen White, is now the record goal scorer for England, who's moved up to 48 goals for a country.
So
she's also the top scorer in the Women's Super League record-wise as well. She's got, I think it's 58 in that tournament overall. So she's pretty handy in front of the posts.
Yeah, I think basically the sort of the thing to take from it is the fact that these I mean, the idea is probably what the Nations League has been sort of created to sort of create this like competition between the sort of the lesser sort of nations and things like that. But they need to bring a thing in where I think they do it in the African nations qualifying, where they do a pre-qualifying of sorts for the sort of the lesser teams, and then those are the teams that go forward to take on the so-called better teams like your teams like Ghana, Nigeria, Tunisia, teams like that pretty much get to the World Cup like every time and stuff like that. But yeah, I think we're getting to the point now where there's that many teams in UEFA that they can afford to make that sort of pre-qualifying tournament to get rid of some of the lesser nations, and then just have the sort of the best of the worst, I suppose, if you can class it as that goes forward. And you'd imagine that will make those teams better over time, because if they're playing against a similar level to themselves, they might up their game, they might have a chance of winning. And San Marino might score a goal for the first time in God knows how many years or whatever, and stuff like that. But yeah, it's sad really. But
away from the women's international game, did you see the stuff about Gabriel, the Arsenal defender?
No.
So he's targeted by armed robbers in his own garage. They tried to steal his car. I think it was something like a 45 grand's worth of Mercedes. Two men came at him. One of them wielding a baseball bat, and he fought them off. So I was like, yeah, good lad. Like he deserves at least a morning off for that. But the guy wielding the bat, they actually managed to arrest him, tie him to the crime through DNA that fell off the hat that he was wearing. And the day before the evidence came to light, I think he'd been jailed for 5 years for previous offences, and then that got tagged on to him as well. So if any of the strikers are coming up against him this weekend in the Premier League, just you're going to need more than a bat, basically.
Dear me. I have got one or two other things to bring up, but I believe, Andrew, we might need to take a very short commercial break. This week's commercial break probably brought to you by that, maybe? Ooh, Stews is definitely much better. What? I mean, that's the healthiest of all, to be fair.
I mean, today's podcast is brought to you by drinking a very large amount of coffee in a very short space of time. So there is that. Buy coffee, people. It's great, and it's cheaper than other things. Right, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with you momentarily. For you, it'll be a short moment. For us, not that long. See you in 2 ticks.
Recording in progress.
There we go. Cheers, as always. Correct. So, we're back. We're back from commercial break. Let's talk more news. I believe we were halfway through.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. It's obviously not something that's very nice, unfortunately. It's for once. It's not racism. It's not anything like that. It's no one trying to attack players or anything like that. It's stuff that's happening in the stands, but not like against the football. So, two of the games that have been played as we're recording is Watford versus Chelsea and Southampton versus Leicester. Both games have had periods they've had a stoppage in the game because a person in the crowd at each game has suffered a cardiac arrest or something like that, which is awful. Obviously, the first so it's happened It's happened a couple of times already this season. It's the first one I can think of was the Newcastle Spurs game.
Yeah.
I think they took him off for about 45 minutes in the end, whilst the guy was getting assessed and resuscitated and things like that. And the guy was fine apparently, and I think they covered about a week or so later that he was fully recovered and things like that.
Still a Newcastle fan there.
I mean, there is also that. There is obviously that that's not
Obviously
never gonna, it's never going to help him, is it? But, so it's just strange that you never really sort of heard anything like this, and then we've had at least 3 in a very, very short space of time where fans are just sort of keeling over in the stands, and it's not good.
If anything, though, it just goes to show that the decision that was taken years ago to have defibs in the ground, absolutely correct decision.
Yep. Well, they put them everywhere, don't they? You walk around York and you just see them sort of like dotted around in sort of random places. They like Andy will remember this. They put one in our office that was there. They actually gave the option for people to take not classes as such, but they were going to give a demonstration on how to use it, and things like that. And it's definitely something that's proven its weight in gold. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
But it's just strange that like you don't. I don't want to use the phrase it's like buses, but like you don't hear of anything like it happening, and it's like so many have happened in a short space of time, and it's just, I suppose, one of those weird ones that if you're going to have one anywhere, at the football's possibly one of the better places on it, because there's going to be at least 2 sets of medical professionals that are there to deal with, well, certainly not that, but medical emergencies and things like that. So it's
and an ambulance on site,
and stuff like that. So yeah, just weird, really, really weird.
Really weird. Anything else for the news?
I guess as we talked last week about the manager situation at Manchester United.
Yes. And
then they decided to go the complete opposite way to the stuff that we talked about. Probably no less than 45 minutes after we'd finished recording.
As seems to be the want of anyone that we talk about on that's the podcast. Stuff like that.
Well, they've now appointed, haven't they? They've appointed an interim manager in a gentleman by the name of Ralph Rangnick, and can't get him a work permit yet, it seems, which is a slight embarrassment, I guess. But Michael Carrick is penned to be in charge, I think, for the Crystal Palace game.
Is it at this point where we just say that if we were still in the European Union, he wouldn't have to have a work permit, would he? So, just saying.
Yeah, shove that in your pipe, Brexit. all the people in Manchester that voted for Brexit.
Exactly. I was going to say
Sorry, no. No, it's Man United. All the people outside of Manchester that voted for Brexit. This is on you.
All those Brexiteer Man United fans, you're to blame for this.
Well, he's been penned in now anyway. Once it finally comes through, because it probably will, to be the manager until the end of the season, until they appoint a permanent manager, but then to go into a consultancy role for 2 years. I'm not really sure what that means. Like, is the new guy coming in going to actually have control of stuff? Is it going to be the Fergie David Moyes situation with the puppet master and that kind of thing?
I imagine it's that thing. Well, to sort of get a little bit more in depth about this guy, I think he's seen as like the sort of the grandfather of German football or something like that. And he's a couple of people's like sort of mentors, such as Klopp and Thomas Tuchel, obviously at Liverpool and Chelsea. And he's the guy who, I think he gave them both a start.
Yeah.
He was the manager. He was certainly the manager when Tuchel was still playing.
Did you see the interview with Klopp after it got announced when it was his presser?
Saw him say something along the lines of, "Yeah, they've got a good one there. I'm a little bit annoyed about that." Something along those lines.
He said basically it's bad news for every other team in English football, was what he said. So it's good that there's a level of respect there, but
yeah, it's kind of like he's almost like the German version of Marcelo Bielsa in a kind of weird way, like this manager guru who's like sort of
Does he sit on a bucket?
I mean, we'll never know until he gets his bastard work.
There was like coverage of him, and he used to have like a punishment wheel. So if you end up in the match or in training, they'd have this kind of like reverse wheel of fortune thing, and they'd spin it, throw something at it, and that's what your punishment was for the week. And it'd be like going and cleaning, or going and like working in the club shop and all that kind of thing. And that's what he'd do to kind of punish the players, either for like yellow cards, red cards, and like messing up.
Absolutely fantastic. That is brilliant.
It's kind of still like that link to the old school kind of thing, like the managers that you don't have anymore, like the Cloughs, the Fergusons, that kind of thing of like, right, you're part of a football club, and that means you're part of a football club. We talked about the kind of Bowie stuff before, and you just kind of like, you're part of a football club. It's not just turn up. It's not just work. And I think that's the problem nowadays, that it has become it's work, and they turn up and they don't have a connection to the club and stuff like that. Whereas, before it was, this community that kind of talk about.
Speaking from experience, if the punishment is to go and work in the club shop, if the team lose, it's not the punishment, because that's all that people talk about until the next game. But yeah, the other bit that I'd seen on the back of that was that, like I said, all the people that we mentioned for the permanent manager's job then are now not been mentioned for the permanent. Well, the latest one to be thrown out is just especially for all the Manchester City fans, Roberto Mancini. Can't imagine there's much truth to that. In fairness, I just feel like it's a bit of to get people out.
It's another one of those ones where, like, if Gary Neville was there, he'd just say he's not a Manchester United manager. He doesn't fit into the ethos of the club and all that sort of bollocks. What I'd be saying there is, I'm sorry, but the ethos of the club has won you shit all for the past 8 years. Ever thought about maybe changing that ethos? Seems it's not working anymore. Just a thought. But
it's one of the most annoying things in football that whenever we want someone who understands the club, who played for the team, and you're like, are we sure about that? Because the person that you're modelling this on, Ferguson, again, Ferguson, Clough, Wenger, all those, never played for the club, therefore don't fit in with the ethos of the club, because the person who kind of created the ethos didn't play for the bloody club in the first place.
And every single one of those managers that you mentioned at one point or another were very close to being sacked before going on to be pretty damn good at it, really. So, I mean, I'm not going to start # give Ollie his wheel back, but,
Give Ollie his wheel back. Oh, man. What a lovely hashtag that would be.
Use all your characters on Twitter by the time you finish the hashtag. But yeah, that's all I had on that one anyway.
The only one I got was we seem to be saying this a lot recently, is Ray Kennedy, former Arsenal and Liverpool player, passed away at 70 years old. So he's from the northeast, from Seaton Delaval, which is like a little seaside town, not far from us, up here. And he played for, just reading through his thing, he was released by Port Vale by Sir Stanley Matthews, released him when he was manager there. And then he just kind of casually went on and played for Arsenal and Liverpool and won some European trophies and stuff like that. And Bob Paisley kind of said he was the one of the most underrated and greatest Liverpool players ever. It's kind of sad he kind of was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 1984. So then kind of lived another kind of 40 years before passing away. So probably ended his career getting Parkinson's when he did. But yeah, just a kind of sad for him to pass away and that kind of thing. So.
Any other news?
One small bit of news. Obviously, the last couple of weeks have have ended with the fact that Poole still don't have a manager. Well, at 9 a.m. this morning, they decided to change all that, and they have appointed the head of the under-23s team at Middlesbrough, former player Graham Lee, as their new manager. So he will take charge from this weekend. They had a game this evening in the Papa John's Trophy, where they were playing away at Sheffield Wednesday, and which would have been a good place for him to start because that was one of his former clubs as well as Poole's. But they obviously, as soon as he'd only been appointed this morning, it was deemed that the people that had prepared the team for this evening's game would take the team. So his first official game will be on Saturday against Lincoln in the FA Cup.
There we go. So that's kind of last week done. We've got what happened in the games last week out of the way, and we've got the news and stuff done. So that just leaves us to look forwards in time. Get our collective crystal balls out and try and decide what it is that we're going to see from the football this week. Only 3 games.
Well, I had a cheeky look ahead on this one. Unfortunately, Andrew, you're going to be disappointed in the build up to that festival that we celebrate in a couple of weeks' time. Unfortunately, there's basically no midweek games between now and Christmas.
So. All that means is it's a reduced chance to get points on the board, but maybe it's like some kind of like distillation, so that we get like just the finest points, the finest predictions. And speaking of those fine predictions, straight on to Middlesbrough taking on Swansea City. The way it works is if it's your team, you pick last, so that you can basically pick the best of all the predictions that came before you. I've already done my predictions, and I will intersperse those throughout the predictions. But for Middlesbrough, Swansea City, I'm going to go over to the Pursuit of Happiness host with the most, Mr. Matthew Moore, to tell me what do you think is going to happen in this game.
I think it's going to be a defeat for Middlesbrough, 2-1 to Swansea.
Oh. Goal scorers?
I've got Spurrar for Middlesbrough, and then I've got a couple of. I've just picked a couple of names just to butcher, just for shits and giggles. Pirro, I think, and Uncham, Ntcham, Uncham, I presume.
Okay. Well, unlike Matthew, I have more faith in Middlesbrough, and I've gone with a 2-0 Middlesbrough win. I like your pick for goal scorer, because I've also gone with Spurrar, but I've thrown Coburn into the mix to score the other goal. Stu?
I'm going completely the other way. Not only, from memory, I don't think Swansea have done particularly well in recent times. Borough seem to be a bit hit or miss, but I have gone for hit this week, and I'm going for Middlesbrough 3, Swansea 1.
I love it. Goal scorers.
I will go also for Spurrar. I will have Crooks to steal one, and Mr. Patrick McNair to give him his Sunday name. And then for Swansea, for no other reason than the connection to the Getting Over podcast and NXT, Mr. Grimes.
Go on then, Paul. Tell us what your team is going to do this weekend.
So, after the fantastic exploits of in their win against Huddersfield on Saturday, I would like to go for another win. We don't seem to be able to keep a clean sheet at the minute. We seem to either concede or just give away goals, as apparently was the case on Saturday. So I will go for 2-1, and for the Borough goals, I will go for Tavernier, much to Shu's chagrin.
Have they put 2 goals in at that end?
Who knows? Crooks has looked good. Crooks has looked really good in the 3 games that he's played under Wilder so far. No, I'm gonna go a slightly left field pick. I'm gonna go for Dijksteel.
Okay. And your Swansea City goal?
So, he wasn't officially an ex-Borough player, but in the summer he was on trial, did play a couple of games, so I'm going to go for Jamie Patterson or Peterson, as he's only got 1 T in his name.
Okay. Next, we've got Nottingham Forest taking on Peterborough United. Matt, you'll pick last. I went second last time, so I went first this time to let you boys know the lay of the land, so that you can, really know where things lie. It's a 1-0 Forest win for me, and I'm almost tempted to not even say who I've put down to score that 1 goal, because he's got to get them 60 in at some point, hasn't he? So, Stu, as a man taking a sip from a glass of fine beer.
I've gone for another confident home win, also by a 2-goal margin. So it is Nottingham Forest 2, Peterborough 0. And I've also gone for Mr. Grabban, and he's not been mentioned for a while, so we'll give Master Yates a run out again.
He is so slow. That was one of the things I saw in the West Bromwich Albion match. Jesus Christ! Even the speed that I ran on Sunday, I couldn't overtake him. Jesus wept, he's slow.
If it goes in off his left nut, I don't care if it's points. That's fine. I'm happy with that.
You have to get there first.
Could be a hell of a ricochet, is what you're telling me.
Incredible.
The Irish wrestler.
Incredible.
Paul.
So, what have we had so far? A 1-0 and a 2-0. I think you can see where I'm going.
A 0-0 draw. Cool.
3-0 to Forest, please, yes.
Correct.
I will have a Grabban double. And seeing as there is mucho talco of his loan being terminated early and him coming back home for Christmas, well, the new year, technically, I suppose, I will go for Jed Spence to score.
I like it. Go on, Matt. What's your team doing this weekend?
Annoyingly, I agree with Paul. I've gone for 3-0. After three draws on the bounce, and not kind of decent results, to be fair. I think coming home against Peterborough, 3-0. Everybody's got him. Got Grabban to score 1. I think he's at 8 for the season, so he's kind of rounded into a bit of form, I think. Johnson, because I've predicted him most weeks and still hasn't scored yet, so I'm going to predict him until he scores. And then another one of my favourites to predict, because he's up there, McKenna, to get a goal.
Has Lolly scored yet this season?
Maybe in the cup, I think. the other thing I meant to mention in the review of the West Brom match, McKenna and Samba got into an argument. That is a fight I would like to see. Jesus Christ. They are
Angry
two
Scotsman versus angry Frenchman. Is he French?
Oh, no, I can't think. He's from one of the French-speaking African nations. I can't remember which one it is, though.
I'll Google it now.
But Paul's just hoping that he finds a random angry Frenchman to fight, obviously.
But, oh Christ, they were arguing, and I'm thinking, if they throw down, this could be an epic one, this one, because no one's going to get in the middle of that one.
Yeah, you know, Brice Samba, born in the Republic of the Congo.
There we go.
Yeah, that quite to see that fight as well, to be fair.
All the match lads were going to sell tickets for this first, but taking odds. I'm like, no.
That brings us to our final game of the week. Comes round so quick when there's only 3 to talk about. And strap yourself in, kids, because Stu's about to predict a 3-0 Reading win. But not until the last pick. So you'll have to wait for this one. Paul, why don't you lead off on this one?
So just how many games on the spin have they won now, Stu?
Oh,
Is there such a saying as 5th time's the charm?
I thought he was going to give it the old.
5 time, 5 time, 5 time, 5 time. Yeah, go on then. Stick me down for a 0-2.
I like the
Clean
sound of
sweep
that.
this weekend, isn't it?
I like the sound of that a lot. See if you can get the same goal scorers.
It's almost too easy to say Lewis Potter, isn't it?
Well, it rolls off the tongue, so yeah.
Yeah, it's almost too easy to say it, but not quite too easy. So we'll go for Lewis Potter.
Mm-hmm. You're on track so far. Let's see if you can get my other goal scorer.
I know for a fact that based on his last couple of weeks' performances, you have definitely written the name of Honeyman down.
I was so tempted. I was like, no, it's too obvious. Don't do it.
Well, exactly.
It's too obvious. I'll be kicking myself.
I am also not going to fall into that trap, but I am going to now check the team from their last game. Even though I've not picked Honeyman, I'm not going to fall into the trap of picking Longman, like his half brother or whatever.
Yeah, he scored in the last game.
Exactly. That means he's not getting anywhere near the goal, is it?
Now that you've mentioned him, though, I believe I remember tipping him to be like one to watch this season. And
Indeed.
The last few games, his assist and then conversion rate. I mean, we won't look at the full season just for the purposes of me getting points there. We can look at the last 3 games. That's fine.
I will go for McLaughlin. Or he's either sort of centre half who basically is told, if you go anywhere further than the edge of this box, I'm going to snap your legs in half.
I think he's got one of them little collars fitted, so if he goes too far, it zaps him. So
An E-collar.
Nice.
Matt, what have you got?
I've gone a 2-1 Reading. A 2-1 Reading win.
Who's scoring?
All good things come to an end, kind of thing, unfortunately, sometimes. I've gone for an Andy Carroll goal.
It sounded like he went off injured. I mean,
He's injured already.
Shock horror.
I thought he came on as a substitute.
He came on.
He can still get crocked because he's a walking room, is he basically?
And is it Swift for Reading? And now I'm going to have to go and search the depths of Reading goal scorers. And Lewis Potter for Hull.
My prediction is almost identical to Paul's. It's a 0-2. Lewis Potter and Wilkes scoring. So it just leaves the man himself. He's coming out strong. It's going to be a 5-0.
So I predicted a strong home win for Borough. I predicted a strong home win for Reading. So seeing as sorry for Forest. So seeing as Hull are away this week, I might as well predict a strong home win for Reading, like I just blatantly gave that away and completely goosed that. So yeah, I am picking Reading 2, Hull 0.
Madman.
He wasn't even taking the piss. He actually has gone for a strong home.
Yep. I was then going to layer it up by saying this is something that the first guy's never done, and then just say Carroll and Drinkwater. But if Carroll's injured, I'll still go for Drinkwater. Now I don't know if he is, but he definitely sounded like he went off injured on Saturday, or when they cut to the Soccer Saturday feed, the woman covering the game certainly said, "Yeah, you don't like to see it," because he looked like he was down. I mean, you know, he has played a whole, at least 25 minutes of football. So. At least 11 minutes of football. In a row. On the proviso that he then has got injured, I will go for... Screw it, let's go for Scott Dan, purely because that's the one that I feel most confident in saying at this point in time. I'll tell you something. We're all doing him a disservice here. He started the game. What, Andy Carroll? Yeah. Subbed off after 81 minutes, actually, according to the Well, that's 81 minutes more football than he's played in the last, however many seasons. Just a bit, yeah.
There we go. The click of the pen signifies the end of the predictions, and that then brings us swiftly to the any other business section. Obviously, we've done things a little bit weirdly way round and all of that. Stu has his hand up.
Just a little bit of a random one, you know, like at the end of the news where they give you like the story for a bit of light-hearted entertainment.
A cat that was saved from a tree. Yeah.
Well, it's better than that. This is incredible. So, this week in football, this week in a Norwegian league game, Viking defender Brekalo was sent off for attacking his own goalkeeper.
Good lad, well done.
The bizarre incident came in the final moments of what ended as a 3-2 win. Brekalo was sent off during Sunday's Elite Syrian match against Kristiansund after attacking his own goalkeeper in the 95th minute. So obviously, you know, fair play, he's waited until the points were in the bag before dropping his mate. But like, it got me thinking. Like there must have been other incidents where people have fought their own teammates and got sent off. And the first one that I came across was somebody from Grimsby Town, so you know, a little bit closer to home.
Kieran Dyer, was it Kieran Dyer, Lee Bowyer?
Certainly was.
Did they both get sent off?
Oh yeah. And it was that one where, as they got separated, you could see Bowyer had his shirt ripped and he was proper snarling and stuff like that. But yeah, it's happened a couple of times.
I mean, that's a while ago, because I'm sure that was around
2005.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It was that story was one of them ones that I sort of heard it in the background and I was like, I'd have quite liked to have been. That must have been the most bizarre thing to see. Especially for like one of the supporters in the stand, you're there to go and watch your team, and then they've just fought each other.
Got a good result, lads. So we played really. Whoa! What's going on there?
Oh no! Because you reminded me of it, based on what you said there. They covered this on Soccer Saturday as well. In I think it was an FA Trophy game. It was Chester versus Curzon Ashton, I believe. The game had to be paused after 15 minutes because an announcement went around the ground that someone needed to move their car. And it turned out that the person who needed to move their car was the ref. So the game had to be stopped so the ref could go and move his car. absolutely textbook. But yeah, that'll do. I'll tell you what, we're gonna have to try and find one of those a week because I like that. That's a nice little sort of like pick me up end of segment pod for the podcast little sort of bit. There must be something nonsense like that happens in football each week. So
yeah,
I'll do my best to try and find something like that each week.
End on a high note. Wonderful stuff. Well then, if there's nothing else, gentlemen, it's my job to say thank you very much to you for joining me, taking these lovely people through the sometimes choppy waters of the football world. We will be here next week talking even more football, whether it's talking about the games we've already predicted, the games to come, or even the football news. Until then, thank you very much, gentlemen, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye. So there you go, what do you think to that? Another one done, another one in the bag, another one in the back of the net. Maybe I should have said that. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening or watching. And if you are listening or watching, wherever you get your podcasts, please do subscribe. You can also jump over to our website, cookiecast.com, check out our social media links, our email links, and you can get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.